In today's video I'm going to share with you a few things that I do to stay warm when winter camping. Today's video is sponsored by Fenix. Before we look into the gear that I actually use for camping, I need to talk about the clothes that you wear whilst hiking to your destination. So getting into your tent, freezing cold and wet through, is not a lot of fun, and it can sometimes take ages to get warmed up again. So it's really important that the clothes that you wear protect you and keep you warm and dry until you get sheltered for the night. So one of the things that I hate most is having cold feet. So having a decent pair of shoes or boots, as well as warm insulating socks, is a must. At the moment I'm using leather boots, but even a pair of wellies will do a great job at keeping your feet dry. Definitely stay away from cotton socks. You're better off with something that's got a wool blend to them, and the same also applies to your base layers. You don't want a cotton t-shirt, get something that is moisture wicking, and something like merino wool will hold its insulation even when it's wet. So most of the time my base layer is a polyester t-shirt, which wicks away the moisture really well, and then I cover it with a fleece of some sort, and then when I need one, a waterproof or windproof. I have got a merino base layer inside the pack, as well as other items that's going to keep me warm around camp. So the chances are, as it has been today, you're going to get some kind of rain or snow in winter time. So you definitely need some kind of waterproof coat, and I've got waterproof trousers on today. If your hands are cold, you can't really do anything. So I also wear a weatherproof glove, which is also really well insulated. So I'll get set up and I'll show you some of the other things I use to help keep me warm. One of the most important things you need is a decent shelter when it comes to winter camping. So that could either be a tent, a hammock or a bivvy. The important thing is you've got something strong enough to protect you from the elements. In heavy snow and winds I recommend a 4-season tent. This one's a 3-season. In a 4-season tent the fly would tend to come right down to the floor. It does reduce the ventilation a bit, but you can find that you're up to 10 degrees warmer in a tent than it is outside. So when you reach camp, if you're wet, you should have a dry set of clothes to change into. And I always bring something like a puffer jacket. This one's got a down filling on it, and the insulation on it keeps me toasty warm. If for any reason I got really cold, I could even sleep in the jacket as well as my sleeping bag. But that's not something I'm going to need to do tonight. For anyone that likes this tent, make sure you tune into my video on Christmas Day at 4 PM, where I'm going to be giving it away to one of my viewers. You'll have to be fast though, because the giveaway is only going to last a couple of hours. So let's have a look at my sleep system. I'll start with the bottom layer. Recently I've been taking a closed cell foam mat which goes underneath my Thermarest Neowear. This gives me an extra layer of insulation. It also acts as a great backup if I was to get a puncture of my Thermarest. It's really important that you have some insulation from the ground. Most sleeping pads have an R rating, which is basically a temperature rating to what it can go down to. So this one's comfortable down to about -6 degrees, so that's plenty warm enough for most of the camping that I do. So next up is your sleeping bag. So not all sleeping bags are equal. One that you get from Halfords or Tesco's is probably great in August, but in winter you're going to need something that's got a much lower comfort rating. So choosing a sleeping bag can be very complicated. They tend to have different ratings on them, so some will have a limit rating, some will have a comfort rating. The one that you really need to look at is the comfort rating. The limit rating will keep you alive, but you're not going to have a very good night's sleep when it gets down to those temperatures. But the comfort rating means that you should have a decent night's sleep to around the temperature that's stated on the sleeping bag. So something that's common in expedition kind of camping is a vapor barrier liner. Most of us here in the UK don't tend to bother with these, but this is a sleeping bag liner. However, it is not breathable. So you put this inside your bag and it will create a microclimate, and then that would stop the the moisture from your sweat getting through your sleeping bag, getting condensation on the outside of your bag, things like that. So that means that your insulation layer always stays in good working order. You don't really want to be getting into one of these with all your clothes on though, because the moisture will stay inside this bag, and that means that whatever clothes you're wearing are going to be wet through too. So most people tend to wear a thin polyester base layer, something like that, or a merino wool base layer, and then they get inside their vapor liner, vapor barrier liner, and then they're toasty warm. And this can easily add 5 degrees onto the rating of your sleeping bag. So when it comes to clothing, you always want to bring some spare warm socks. These ones are smart wool, keep my feet toasty warm. If you get cold feet, it's a nightmare trying to get them warm again. I've also got a merino wool base layer, so this is what I'm asleep in, camping pyjamas. And because I'm using the quilt and I haven't got a hood from like a mummy sleeping bag, I wear this beanie as well, so that stops any heat escaping from my head. Keeps my lug holes warm as well, and then when I'm in the quilt I'm toasty warm. So another good tip for winter camping is to have plenty of hot drinks, and also have something to eat just before you go to bed. So a decent meal with plenty of protein in it will raise your metabolism, and it'll warm your core up. So while you've got the stove on, you can fill up your hot water bottle too. Stick this into the bottom of your sleeping bag, and that keeps you really warm throughout the night. This doesn't weigh very much at all, but it definitely adds a lot of warmth to your sleeping bag. Just looking at it's warming me up. The moon's out, that's about it for the daylight. Perfect timing to mention today's sponsor, Fenix. Let me show you this. So this is the Fenix HM65R Shadowmaster. So this light is 1200 lumens maximum. It's IP68, waterproof. It's got lots of tilt settings and various different brightness settings as well. It's a really bright flashlight. I've been using this since my last Lake District trip up at Sprinkling Tarn. Just keep pressing the button to cycle through the brightnesses. A long press switches it on, and then little presses cycles through. Most of the time I only need it on the lowest setting. It's also got a red light, which again has got a load of different settings. This is great for when you've got other people around camp, or you don't want to draw too much attention to yourself. The battery on this does last for ages, but when it finally does run out, it's USB-C rechargeable, so it's dead easy to charge it up again, even when you're out on a camp using a power bank. I'll leave a link in the description below where you can pick one of these up. So thanks again to Fenix for sponsoring today's video. So once you're all tucked up inside, it's much warmer than when you're out in that wind. My fingers are starting to get really cold, but now I'm toasty warm. Just cracked open a beer. Now alcohol is not actually good for keeping you warm. You can end up getting cold if you drink a few too many beers. So I don't recommend that. Well, I do recommend that you have a beer, but but not for keeping warm. Whoa, it's a bit chilly. These rocks look awesome. While I'm out, I'll see if I can get a decent night photo. Right, minute, I'm going back in. It's frozen. I'm so glad to be back in here. It's freezing. That brings me on to the next winter camping tip. If you need to go for a wee, bring a spare water bottle with you. One of the wide mouth things. And that way you don't always have to get out of the tent to go to the toilet. Time to get my head down now. Got my hat on, my merino base layer. I should be cosy tonight. But if I'm not, I'll let you know in the morning. Didn't have the best night's sleep, but it wasn't because I was cold. Sleeping pads gone corner to corner. I was a bit restless last night. Couldn't seem to get comfortable. So before I came out the tent, I made sure I'd got all my kit on. There's no point being toasty in there and then coming out here and getting freezing. I lasted about a minute before I had to put some gloves on. So I'm having to turn on all the touchscreen stuff with my nose. Where's all the views gone? It's time for me to head off. Joe's coming to pick me up. But I'm all wrapped up. Nice, waterproof. Although I expect I'll be a little muddy. I hope that you stay nice and warm on your winter camping adventures. And I'll see you next time.